Hey, welcome back. There's going to be some more of our Duke playthrough with the backhand blade. And you're going to see some awkward tilting at the start of this video for probably like 20-ish minutes. One of the funky things about my controller is that I'm using a Switch, or not a Switch, but a Switch Pro controller. And for some reason, whenever it connects to my laptop, um, it's got a little bit of like I've been calling it Joy-Con lag because that's what I'm used to from Switch controllers. But it's got this weird thing where it will tilt and then readjust, and it'll slowly fade out after a bit. But it wants to like take a top-down view or a left view. I have no idea. But as it fades out, you know, it goes. Um, Picking back up, running around in Shadow Altus, and I really like this area. It's just kind of cool. It's pretty empty, unfortunately, but I like it a lot. It's got good vibes. Or I don't know if it's got good vibes. Maybe I just like dark colors. I just like dark colors on like these orange, umber, ambers, and twilighty colors. Maybe I'm just a product of Kingdom Hearts. That's entirely possible. But if I am, sue me. um, and if we didn't get enough of him last time, it's time for another encounter with Baby Girl, Fire Knight Queenline. Like I said, I don't know why, but I've just got like a positive association with this fellow. Maybe that's because I'm thinking of him as like the beefy version of Lord Farquaad. But there's something funny about it, or I don't know. I think that he's like a good representative of the Mesmer faction outside of Mesmer himself, and you get an encounter with him pretty darn early, which is pretty cool. And then you get to make some choices with him later on. I don't know. It feels like, compared to a lot of the NPCs that we encounter, especially invaders, to have a direct hand in how their story plays out is pretty cool. Especially when, I mean, let's face it, it's a FromSoft game. The people who are associated with the fire element are just always the coolest. It's just a thing. I'm sorry. You can disagree. You can be wrong, but it's just a known thing. I mean, so yeah, I don't know. The Mesmer faction is a really interesting one. I talked about it a little bit last time, where like I do think it's very cool that they are a penal system, a penal army that's been sent here from the lands between, and that they're basically fighting for how to phrase it. I want to say fighting for freedom because that sounds a little a little too political, but they're a lot of them are criminals. A lot of them are people who were freed from the jails, who were sent here to serve alongside Mesmer in America's attack on the Bellarat civilization and all the other ulterior motives that she seemed to have. Again, we don't have concretes, and I tend to put a lot of personal agency on America because I think she's a cool character. And honestly, I think that some of the ways that people can talk about America can kind of become borderline misogynistic. I know that's probably a little polarizing, but I feel that a little bit. And especially for a character who's so interesting, so dynamic, who we've got such like nebulous details and like timelines to work with in regards to for a character who's like pseudo transness, for their like gender expression, for their like way that they, I don't know, there's parts of my brain that's like, oh yeah, America's like a force of evolution or something like that. But the details that we got from the Bonnie Village and things like that, all of that coming together with the DLC is still kind of percolating in my brain, and getting to explore and extrapolate that a little bit is really cool. And it's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing with this little, YouTube foray. But we'll see how much I actually end up investing into that. I'm not exactly a lore theorist, and at this point, I've watched so many like YouTube lore videos trying to make what would feel to me like an authentic report of people whose ideas I am pulling from and synthesizing and incorporating into my own understanding of the story and the lore. Trying to make an authentic like like usage document for that. I have no idea where I would begin, so I would be pretty hesitant to dip my toes into that at all. Um, but yeah, here we have some more of the bad times of me not figuring out how to fight Queenline, who is objectively not a difficult NPC. But hey, he's styling, and you know, sometimes you get a little lost in the sauce when you're watching someone cool fight you and beat the crap out of you. Um, I think Queline's a good example of that because you could just absolutely be Queline. That's one of the things that I think people kind of neglect when they think about like NPC fights like this is that this is a build you can just do. You can just be Queline. Isn't that kind of cool? Um, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've been thinking about like if I was going to do a Mesmer type build and situation, which I'm already like kind of wanting to do, which is problematic because I'm still really quite early on in the Duke play. Is it'd be really fun to like slap on as much Mesmer Flame stuff. I'd love to know more about the lore of it too, because fire in Elden Ring is really interesting. The difference between fire and flame, the differences between like the fell flame of the giants, the fire that is so important to like a lot of the other culture of the lands between the frenzied flame. There's like there's a lot going on with fire, and like we said, fire is always the coolest factions in Souls games. Made a lot more sense in Dark Souls, obviously, but it's still present here. And I like to play with that in my head. Like I joked about, Hershey's always been a red main in my brain, but it'd also be really cool to play Hershey as a Mesmer person. Just be like my stupid cat man running around and causing trouble with Fire Knight Queenline and beating up his boss. No, it seems fun. So maybe keep an eye out for that on the horizon. Last time I did a little bit of streaming with Elden Ring, I was doing a fire build with Hershey, and that was very fun. But unfortunately, that was a new game plus. And as I've discovered, I really like new game. I just like new game better. There's something more fun to me about finding new stuff and not like starting with most of the stuff that you need and no like progression lying ahead of you. So I think that probably replaying base game and replaying DLC will be two separate experiences for me, and the new game pluses are really not in my cards. Oh, hey, look at that! I even beat Queenline. On the bright side, um, like I'm really impressed by how much you can get out of these quest lines, and to be honest, the Flame Spear Ash of War is like, or that's the other flame one. But the Mesmer Ashes of War in general are just really fun to use. And I don't know how I would go about like determining which one of them would be my main or be able to switch back and forth between them pretty comfortably since it seems like there's a bit of a glitch right now with some of the Fire Knight stuff scaling better with Faith than it does when it's supposed to with like the Flame Art. So I guess the Sacred versus the Flame Art is what I meant to say. But we'll see. And yeah, let's get back to it. So here we have a little bit of the Fog Fort Rift, and I thought that this is like one of the better self-contained little side areas because there's nothing happening here. I know that's a weird thing to say, but like fundamentally, this is an area you have absolutely no reason you have to go to. There's nothing of like extreme importance here. There's like a crafting cookbook, a couple of talismans, a shield, and like all good stuff, all worthwhile. But it's one of the few areas where you get to like you've got a very conveniently placed like summon sign so that you can get your mimic tier out. Or like I said, I'm planning on switching out the mimic for a little bit as I get into probably the subsequent video after this. But like you get to run around a little bit, you get to have a little support, and I like that a lot because a lot of Elden Ring feels very empty. And getting to run around with just your little buddy, and I love the way that people put personality onto their mimic tiers. Um, I think it's really cool, especially because we get to fight another Black Knight boss here, and I know they're nothing fancy, and they're kind of a repeated asset. But at the same time, they have a lot of flavor and a lot of lore built into them. The fact that they rebelled against Mesmer, the fact that they have randomly aspect of the Crucible powers, and the shame upon Miyazaki's name that he solved our number one request for the base game of giving us the aspect of the Crucible wings, but then he introduces aspect of the Crucible tongue, and we can't have it. I hate it. Give it to me. It's so silly. I mean, or don't. I understand not giving it to me, but like, look at that. It looks like he's spitting out a lightsaber. I'm sorry. I'm a goof. Um, but yeah, I think the Black Knights in general were really cool. Coming in is another NPC that most people really do not like, and I'm a big Moonroom hater in the base game. Honestly, I really don't mind Moonrathil, mainly because you can run past much comfier and not mess around. And on the flip side, even if you don't, I mean, there's no elevator to cheese out Moonrathil, but like it's still an interesting enough encounter. You can get an early, like crit from walking up behind like this. I don't feel like there's anything too annoying about Moonrathil. I know people don't love the sword, the great blades, but like I think it's a fun encounter. At the end of the day, like you know, sometimes that's what you need. These little reminders that you're not the only like human-sized thing running around in a land between who can hold their own. Like I think that's kind of rare. Even if you look at bosses, there's so few human-sized bosses, and the human-sized bosses are not human-sized. Like I mean, we're in Castellensis right now, and Rolana is not human-sized. She's a big girl. That's a big lady. But yeah, and I'm not sure how to feel about the Rolana cameo. On the one hand, Wing Stance is so stupid powerful that like I love it. And if I was playing a run where I was using like Wing Stance or well, I think that's the only new stance skill, but like or besides Rolana's twin swords. Um, I don't know if I would use it unless I was in a situation like that where I'm purposely not using base game talismans. Like there's other options here that I would prefer over it just because of the duration on how long you have to hold it for. But honestly, if you just spam it too, I think it does trigger. So like, go for it, in my opinion at least. I don't know. It's a cameo. It's a talisman that I want to play with more because I really two ones that I never really touched in the base game at all were the regular unsheath and square off. And because of just how much I know that they are really performing, according to a lot of people, I might just try them. So keep an eye out for that. Oh, you might have watched that and been wondering to yourself, was he trying to position himself to teabag the Black Knight? Yes, yes, I was. And I apologize for that. I do have that juvenile instinct. But would I be who I am without it? Real question. Also, what the fuck is the imbued sword key for? Where am I using this? Who's giving this to me? Why do I need this? Is it used somewhere and I just don't know? Maybe I need to Google that. Oh, well. Alright, time for remembrance fight. So I'm bringing in my girl Lita because, like I said, I really do like Lita's character. I think she's really fun and really interesting. And when you've got like such a, I don't know, she seems to be the core of the Mikkeli faction that we have ever dealt with in game. So like, she's gonna hold a lot of like significant lore value, no matter how you slice it. And for her to join us on a fight like this, which I think was one of the like earlier like revealed encounters for a lot of people that were just like, hey, what's going on here? Is this Melania 2.0? She moves like her. I'm terrified. She's got stances. What's a stance? I think Lita being here for this is kind of huge and really cool. And yeah, I know I say that kind of thing a lot, but it's interesting to me. Also, shout out to Carrion Serenity. Still haven't used it. Probably need to try it out, but at the same time, like, I really wish that I was better with like tech and with modding, because I would love to try out a different color palette on those ashes and immediately be happier. And here, I don't know how I got those jumps. Like, I remember in the moment gasping, visibly, audibly gasping at like, how did I get the timing on those dodges? Only to die immediately after, in a completely worthless way, for having been shown such mercy. But, yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles, to be fully honest. I think that is a good point to reference, though, that there does seem to be a very conscious effort in this DLC, which maybe it just wasn't as forward-facing as it was in the base game, or the base game wasn't as forward-facing as it is in the DLC, but I feel like almost every boss has a very intentional, hey, remember how we gave you like different mobility features? Use them. They're not just for exploration, they're for combat. Every single, maybe not every single, but almost every boss really does feel like they have a jumpable attack, and that goes a long way. Now, some of them it's like really essential here, like just trying to, I don't know if it's rollable at all, even on lightweight, even with the feather tier, or not the feather tier, but whichever one enhances rolling, to roll the twin moons. I don't think there is. That's like a whole flask, if not two, that you're just losing out on automatically. And you can extend that way further. Like, there's fights like the Putrescent Knight fight that are just completely undoable. If you can't, or maybe not completely undoable, but like, he spams attacks enough that it's like, if you haven't figured out that it's a good jumpable moment, you're really holding yourself back from some very easily avoidable damage that's fully telegraphed. It's like, hey, I'm doing my thing. You see this. It's not, I mean, like, even compared to the twin moons, telegraphed. But, you know. I guess another thing to talk about here is I think that in addition to Lita just generally using all things that I really love, a light greatsword, the multi-layered ring of light, and using her Ash of War, which I really haven't played around with much, but I really should. The Piercer is just, I really like that, and I love that even though it's a bad effect, and that it basically has eliminated the sword from PvP use. The fact that it eliminates statuses on the targets, I love that from a lore standpoint. Just to have a Needle Knight who's built fully around, like, the purpose of the unalloyed golden needles in the first place. That's a cool idea. And you like to see that kind of reference built into the character. Like, no offense to Hornsent, one of the interesting things is, like, Falx is, like, kind of cool. I know it's one of the best weapons in the entire game, but I'm much more interested that he uses the Bairn and summons the spirits. And it's like, that's kind of cool. I like that. I get a lot more story from that than I do from things like, for instance, the Falx. Or, you know, I don't know. It's little moments where, like, we learn more about the NPCs through the way that their combat is built. Ugh. Sidetracked by, goddamn, do those twin moons really like to lay it home that you missed the timing? Because that bounce is a painful bounce. It's fun. That's a fun fucking attack. But, like, oof. Watching that after the fact is very much like, disrespect. I have been disrespected by this event. Back on what I was saying about the NPCs. You know, the hints that we get about that the way that they are built for combat, I think is one of the most interesting assets of the lore. Like, I just talked about Litos, but a good example is like Sir Moore. I mean, he starts basically every one of the gang fight with him with a hefty rot pot. That's really interesting because on the surface value, that just feels very meta, but under the hood, when you look at it, you really do see that, like, wait a minute, he's the, like, a member of the Forager brood, so to speak, or, like, they're his kin. So, is that, like, I don't know, that goes a long way to telling us a little bit of, like, there's positive aspects to rot, not just the negative aspects that we associate with it. Or at least that the rot is not solely the domain of Melania and her outer god, the Scorpion God, who seems to be interacting with both her and Ramina of the Bud. I'm interested. I want to learn more. And I hope that as I play these games more and I see more of like those character moments that shine through in their combat specialization. Something to call out here as well about the Rolana fight is just, gosh darn, it's so freaking fun. Like, she's just, I don't know, she's unlike, I don't really love the Renala fight because it feels much more like, I don't know. It's cool to have a wizard boss. I really do like that. But I'm confused on a lore sense because Renala, I'm getting stumbled on the sister names. Renala and her fight, there's very much a degree to where, is this really how she would fight, or is this how Ronnie would fight, or how Ronnie pictures her mother to fight? And that I can't answer, that we can't, we don't have sufficient evidence for. I lean very much towards it's basically the Ronnie boss fight, just because of the Oathsworn summons. I mean, she summons literally a Bloodhound Knight, some wolves, a giant, and a dragon. And it's like, oh, who are Ronnie's friends? The wolves all over her place. Her half-brother Blythe, her war council Eg, her Oathsworn dragon, Azula. Is it Azula? The one we fight out front. Point being, the one who doesn't show up is Selphus. For good reason. But, like, that feels more to me like a sister fight. Meanwhile, we get one of those, like, cool insights into a character. And, as I'm saying this, a nice little, the NPC saved my ass and clutched that fight. Rolana feels very much like you're learning a lot more about who she is and what she's about in her boss fight than Renala. And I mourn that, because I'd love to know more about the Lunar siblings, about the House of Caria, because that's some of the lore that really is buried, that the characters who are alive to tell it can't. And the ones who are giving us that info are giving us a bit of a sanitized history. Or at least a biased history. Like, our primary sources for a lot of the Carrion lore, unfortunately, are coming from Ronnie, who's not exactly trustworthy in any facet, including her faction with Eg. We get a bunch from Pope Miriam, who's, again, kind of sanitizing everything. And we get a fair bit all the way over from our dear friend Selin, who is, well, as an apostate witch, she's not exactly the gold standard of unbiased historian. Although, shout out to Thops as well, because he does shed some light, some starlight perhaps. Oh, that lore video by Miss Chalice really broke me. That was such a good note on him. Definitely go check that out. Go check out her content if you haven't seen her stuff. She does lore contemplations and mixes in cosplay. It's very cool. We have so many sources. That's the odd thing. We have so many sources about the Carian family, but really so little is said. And I'd love to know more, because then you have people who are jumping off on like crazy, like aggrandized theories based on sole lines of text. Like a good example being Renala and her enchanting moon, which you'll hear me gripe about at some point during this playthrough, is I keep looking at the moon and being like, well, there's only one moon, and it looks like the same moon as before. So how come there's twin moons? What does it mean? Because we know it's before the shadow split, so, like, what does it mean? Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that's a long ramble. That's a long ramble right there of some thoughts. So let's watch some gameplay. Not a ton to say here because I'll probably save a lot of my commentary on Tholier and his whole quest line and Saint Trina for when we are in the Saint Trina area, when we are in the uh, the Rift. I'm trying to remember the Stone Coffin Rift. But shout out to this guy for having one of the the best lines in Elden Ring. I mean, whoever penned the masterstroke of "I'm as meek as a kitten and as thin as two boards." Is that it? Oh my god, so stupid, so delightful. Thank you, Tholier. Um, Also, big shout out to my eternal frustration that they give us another merchant who doesn't sell us infinite of anything. I don't know why that was the decision on. Or he does. He sells us infinite of his death concoction. Uh, but that's literally just a safeguard. Like it's not usable in the traditional sense. I'm like, I don't know why they did that. Like something people constantly gripe about is like the inability to buy as many consumables of all the types as you'd like. And I get it for like rarer consumables or better consumables where some farming makes you appreciate the use that you're getting out of them. But at the same time, it's like for the generic greases, things like that, why can't I just buy these? For things like Miranda powder, which is like you burn through it so freaking fast. Like, I mean, compared to like farming for arrows or something like that, or even pots, having to use like a single Miranda powder for every single of the base game spark flasks. Holy, like, who thought that that was okay? All right, picking up back here. Just about time to get in there and do another fight. But this is going to be another one of those where I need to trim it because I don't know what I was doing here. But I very clearly stepped away to go to the bathroom or get some food or something because I'm just looking at my progress bar. I'm like, wow, I was gone for a minute here. So we'll be back shortly. All right, let's get into here properly now. So, after a little bit of running around and being stupid, we're ready to do this fight, which I'm torn on the Lion Dancer fight. I really do like it, but also I'm very confused about what this tells us about the world. On the one hand, the boss is cool. The boss is fun. I love the fact that there's probably this presumptive, like, additional outer god or god of the horn scent that we're being introduced to that is kind of focused on the elements, on wind, rain, thunder, water, all that good stuff. Ice and lightning. But on the flip side, there's weird parts of where this is obviously referencing something that is real world, where we have a literal lion dance. It's two dancers under a costume, which I was a little shocked by. I was certain it was going to be three people at least, but I guess they went with a different direction on that. Um, but also we have like the lion statues around the room, which are like additionally straight rips from real world culture. And it's interesting that those happen to be straight rips from real world culture, but they're placed in an area that is so definitively set in a different culture. And it's like that's fine, but I want the connective thread, the connective tissue there that shows me how the horn scent kind of transformed their culture after being separated from the Shadow Tower, from any or limb, into the state that we know them now or that we're seeing. Like their sculpted keepers are super, super interesting, but also like the Eastern Asian influence here is really, really hard to ignore. And it's like, how did that DNA get mixed into the culture here, and how did it become like so important? I would love to get more, like I said, connective tissue. I like the wording on that. So hopefully, I don't know. Maybe that's a Zuli question. Maybe that's a Vadi question. Hopefully someone fills me in a little bit more because I'd love to get just a tiny hint more. Another thing that I saw people theorize at the start of the DLC was that maybe the broken glass bits that we could pick up all throughout the base game that serve no significant purpose. Maybe I think they're farmable too, so they can't even be for collection's sake. They do have a very distinctive color that kind of matches the color of the eyes of the lion dancer, and I'm interested in that. I'd like to know more. Is that telling us something about like the outer god that they worship? Is that just remnants of broken, shattered keepers and the lion dancers that have, I don't know, I'd say fallen from the Bellarat Tower civilization, or from Anir Lim, from I can't think of of Malketh's area, of the dragon area right now. But I'd like to know or have confirmation on that because I think that's interesting. But I don't know if there's much to it. Shout out as well again here to the blindspot Ash of War, because boy oh boy are we getting good use out of it. It really does. I'll comment on this later down the line, where it has a kind of weird way that it interacts with longer targeting forms, but I think when they're very localized to like where it picks that lock-on point, it really puts in some frickin' work. Because I feel like there were a lot of times when I was using this where it had just the right timing and just the right amount of movement to get me to the side of an enemy and get a lot of benefit out of it. Now, I say that as I die, but like, it's Elden Ring. That's what we're here for, right? Yeah, thinking about this again. Like here, this is even a good example of just looking at the boss fog wall. Like I'll point this out quite a few times. The view that you have pushing open doors for the first time, or especially if the view is open and the boss is either hidden and concealed in the boss room or is going to be making their way out. I think those are some of the most interesting and like lore-filled moments potentially of the entire gameplay experience of these games. But to be entering into this boss fight through a door that's obviously very like Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Sumerian inspired, into what is very obviously a different culture and reference. I want to know the story there. Tell me more, especially because this is literally the gateway of divinity, or heading up to the gateway of divinity from here, from like the steps leading up to Eniri Lim. This is where the shadow tree is blocking us off, or the ceiling tree. I want to know. Tell me more. Now, getting into this fight a little more properly, you can see that there's an awkward way that this guy moves, and that a lot of people have called attention to, is that if you remove the cape on the lion dancer to see what the actual forms are getting up to, and this is something that I find a little disappointing, They really aren't choreographed in an authentic way. Which I mean, I guess on the one hand, there's only so much fine detail work that you should really be putting into these. And when they do you reuse quite a few assets, or at least the effect of some. Our own blind spot Ash of War is, I think the movement arc on it is ripped from Melania, and I'd say the same of a bunch of Rilana's moveset is ripped from Melania, and probably from that style. I'm sure there's quite a bit of that in here too. Oh, the pain of missing a World Knight's resolve on a misericorde. But I'd love to know, like, who made the decision to like have such like it's called the lion dance for a reason, you know. I get it that it's just the sculpted keeper, but you know, it's an actual cultural like thing that's happening here. I'd love to see that recreated in some way, even though obviously a boss fight isn't necessarily like a one-to-one for a performance. But on the other hand, it kind of feels like it, doesn't it? Oh, wow, I really did have just a couple runs here of getting it down to really low health and then getting my ass stomped. But then again, he's using the Divine Beast Stomp, so like I guess that's appropriate. That's lore accurate, is what I'm saying. But it still hurts. It hurts my soul. I feel it in here, in my jellies, which is the proper name of the Pikachu organ, I'm pretty sure. Well, 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 well. Would you look at that? I don't know what to say here. Just that another really good example of where we learn a lot about a fight thanks to our NPC who's here for it with us. I think it's kind of cool that the red mane is here for the dancing lion fight. I don't think anyone's ever vocalized that to me. Maybe they, obviously it's not the two same kind of lions, but it's significant, right? You know, Freya's very warlike. Is it entirely, and to the point where I think she entirely misunderstands her lord because of it. I don't know how long she's known Radon or like served as Redmane, but she's got a very different take of him than the rest of the story would lead you to believe. The fact that she shows up at the Bellarat settlement and is just facing here, getting ready for a fight, and is constantly alluding to wanting glorious battle. It makes me wonder, did she come here just because, oh, there can only be one proper lion? I'm going to go exterminate that giant dancing lion. I don't know. Maybe that's overreaching, but I'm tickled by the idea. And I had to try on the hat. You know I did. It's funny, when I was doing my Pluto run through, God, the number of times I was trying to farm the Divine Beast Warrior shirt, and I got so many drops of the smaller version of the head. It was so upsetting. So if you see me get one just accidentally later in the playthrough, oh, you are going to hear some screaming. So fair warning, should that come to pass. Were you watching me run around all these cliffs trying to find Forge Brood members and not knowing where the hell I was going and thinking to yourself, for someone who said they weren't going to be messing around with Moore's questline a lot, this person seems to be really fixated on finding cookbooks. Yes, correct. As we will see in the next remembrance boss that we face after this, I I don't know why. I've got a fixation on the consumables of these games, and I keep using them, and it's a real problem. But and also the fact that I'm just so unwilling in general too, while playing, pull up relevant details. I'll try and be better about it. But you're gonna see a lot of running around like, is this where this is? Is this where this is? And then I just give in and pull up extra life. It's gonna happen. My apologies. And another itty bitty rundown into one of these forges. This was one that I didn't explore at all previously, and I don't think I got all the loot, but maybe I did. So I'll be checking myself to see later on this one. Uh, as of recording this, I still have not found Taylor's Summon, but we're getting close. I think maybe. I'm pretty sure it's accessible since the start of the DLC, and I'm just stupid. But I can't fix that. I trust me. I've tried. The stupid doesn't go away. The stupid just comes back. But on the bright side, we get some good use out of a Smithscript dagger for the first time, which is a little bit overdue. And I probably should really look up where you get the scattershot throw. But for now, it's helping me pick off enemies. Though it is knocking me off bridges, as you've seen there. And also is a little buggy. But it's fine. Honestly, if anything, I think other people don't like it. I might be the first person who really likes the jumping attack for the Smithscript daggers because it's a jump back, which is like jump attacks are generally pretty good because they offer a little bit of protection and do very good damage for jumping heavy. But I feel like it's a double win with the Smithscript daggers of it's a jump and you can move backwards while executing the jump. Now maybe I'm just missing something about the internals of that, but if you wanted to play like a no hit or something, this feels like the way to go, right? Because like you get more iframes in general during jumps than you do during even fast rolls, even during enhanced fast rolls. So it's like that's a pretty good strategy. Distance between you and the boss using projectiles, the most safe strategy. I don't know, that just feels like stonks to me. So if you see me using the Smithscript daggers, up until at least I get the alternate Ash of War for them, it's probably gonna be a lot of jumping R2s. Sorry, not sorry. And here's another good example of stopping to talk to our NPCs. Uh, there's a lot of really important info that we get from just a very, like, offhanded remark by Freya. Now, this may be me reading in too much for something that's pseudo cut content. I don't think there's any valid way to see most of the NPCs without their masks on. But like, if you look at, like I've mentioned a few times in the past, Zuli the Witch's excellent video on masking the DLC NPCs. Um, Fraser's got a tiny itty bitty little scar. Now, her mask does definitely demonstrate that she was wounded there pretty grievously with scarlet rot, but the fact that Mikla, despite all of his inability to allegedly cure Melania, is able to put Freya under his thrall at the same time as like fully seemingly putting Freya's scarlet rot into remission, if not curing it outright. Something that we don't have any like real textual evidence for being possible, especially because through one event or another, and this might be because of the source of the scarlet rot being much more tightly tied into the source of the outer god for the rot, with Melania's rot being inflicted upon Millicent and her brood, it's a little of like, I don't know. What does it mean? What does Freya's injury mean? Is this. Part of me is like, oh, maybe this is a hint at a little conspiratorial thing of maybe Mikola was frustrated with his inability to cure Melania's scarlet rot, but like, I don't know, maybe that's not true. Maybe he could have, but she is his loyal blade. And I don't know, keeping someone at your beck and call for like your one hope of a cure, that that's a level of emotional manipulation that exists perfectly well and very strongly in the real world. You don't need a great rune for that kind of charm, and that kind of charm endures regardless of your great rune breaking. So that's something that I've seen people talk about a fair bit in regards to. Well, I mean, the DLC is very self insular. It doesn't, to my understanding, there's effectively no instances of the base game being affected by decisions made in the DLC, which I think is kind of lame. But from a lore perspective of it, maybe that makes sense. Maybe even the Great Rune breaking wouldn't have any kind of effect on Melania and her loyalty to her brother at all. Honestly, Melania very much gives the. She's very much the Ludwig of this game, where it's like whatever she is, her current state that she is, she's not the proud warrior she once was, if she ever was, and that's very very clear. In my opinion, during her transitions, the way that she fights and the way that she addresses us, she's kind of existing in liminal space right now, and it kind of doesn't matter how much time has passed, what's happened since, before, after, whatever order you do the DLC, Mikola's death, the breaking of the Great Rune, and then fighting Melania in any sequence there, I think it might not matter, and that might go further to reinforce that no, she was not under his thrall in any meaningful way, magically or like great runingly, but is perpetually under his thrall, as his devoted sister and other half. Well, not even other half, just a twin, which is one of the weirder aspects of the DLC. That a lot of the siblings in Elden Ring are very much paired in a more significant way than these two. And to the best of our understanding, aside from them being twins, and aside from some reused assets like Euphoria, we functionally don't have anything to go on that indicates a more significant connection between them than just, the basic lore setup of who they are and what they are. The pairing, the contrarianism or the contrast provided by him having eternal youth and her being afflicted with rot. There's something there where those two things superficially very much go hand in hand, but for the way they interact with the lore, don't touch at all. I'm intrigued. That's all I got to say about that, for now at least. We'll come back to this when we see Nicola more directly.
for you to deserve your share of the reward, I'll mix up something special. If you find yourself weary of the weight of this life, then just sleep is a balm. Is that so? Then take this. This can come for you for all. So,
shout out, but still one that I do think is deserved. This felt very rewarding because I stumbled across this naturally, despite the amount of videos that I watch about Elden Ring and anything that I'm currently fixating on. The fact that I had the instinct to, oh hey, that's a cool giant, I want to go fight him, um, and that he was throwing new kinds of pots, and that specifically he was throwing sleep pots, and you come over and you get a hefty cracked pot, 10 out of 10. Rewarding environmental engagement with physical like new reward and not just a worthless grave glove port 1 2 3. I love that. Now again, I've commented on like, yeah, you're saving us some run back, you're saving us some running to the round table hold and some root expenditure, but honestly, for the majority of players for the DLC, we really aren't caring about when we lose runes, and that's why I have Duke just kind of sitting over my rune total, because aside from when I finish a boss and I get explicitly just enough runes to level, and throw those on, or if I'm like really close and I know I can slap some shadow runes on there and get there, it's kind of a meaningless number for a bunch of the DLC. Like, I don't know. I think that there could have been a different system in play there for the reward aspect of the overworld that they did better in some parts than others. Hopefully that gets followed up on. Um, and something to comment on as we're heading down towards the rift. I still have not broken the grid rune here because I'm still trepidatious of that. But we get into it next time, and additionally next time, I believe I pick up with live commentary. So that's something to be looking excitedly towards. There's going to be some ongoing little shifts between like the quality of the audio and how it interacts and what I ended up doing with all of it. But until I figure out like 100% this is exactly what I'm doing, it'll be an experiment. And I hope you guys are enjoying it and are here for it. And if you do, leave a like. Definitely comment for sure. I'd love to know you enjoyed. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.